So, vibration isolation fit is something that has been around for some time now in the audiophile market. I don't know if you have played with it, do you believe it works or not, but personally I have been giving some attention to that part, both with my electronics and with my speakers. And today we are going to talk about Stack Audio AUVA 50. These are the smallest model in the range. There's also 70 and 100. And each of these is noticeably more expensive. So when Stack Audio offered these feet for a review, I willingly asked for the smallest and cheapest one, because by my standards, even those are not really that cheap. And I also thought that probably for most of you that are following my channel, this is like the most realistic option that you would consider. The general idea of these feet is that there are some really small particles, they're sand-like, but not sand really, that are carrying the weight of your speakers and disrupting this rigid continuous connection to the floor, and also disrupting vibration in that way, because when you have many small particles, they absorb vibrations, and friction between these particles actually creates heat. So vibration is turned into heat. And it would be easy to think that this is just marketing mumbo jumbo if you don't put much thought into it, but I have something interesting to share. So many of you don't know this about me, but I'm an electrical engineer and I specialized in precise equipment. And I have worked for years with lab equipment. And among other things, I actually worked quite a lot with high precision lab scales. And I'm also certified to work with these high precision scales and calibrate them, tune them, etc. And the interesting thing, if you just take one of these scales and put them on the normal table or floor or anything, you can never achieve such high precision, because these last two digits will always be jittery and changing all the times, constantly. And why is that? Because vibrations around us, they may come from traffic outside of your building or house that you are not even aware of, but such high precision instruments, they detect it. Or just somebody walking around your house or in your building. And the way that, one of the oldest ways that was solved is to have like a really massive dedicated table for high precision scales with a deep sandbox. And then on that sandbox, you would have another plate. It's usually also heavy, made from granite or something like that. And then when you put a scale on that platform, you would see that outside vibrations are not influencing these last two digits anymore. And then you don't see that jitter and those digits jumping up and down all the time. So the sand basically absorbed outside vibrations, converted them into heat, and you have steady precision scale. I know that this is not just a regular sand, and Stack Audio says it's tungsten and some other materials that are even more efficient in absorbing vibrations and turning them into heat. And I cannot tell you if that's true or it's just marketing, but the real science behind these is really not important in my mind. What's important is if that works or not. And is it in a practical form? And while on that practicality, you can get these in various different types and forms with different diameters and threads, and you can also get them with felt on the bottom, like I did, because I have like a nice parquet floor, or you can get spikes like these if you have carpet or something that you need to pierce through, so you have a stable, well, this is sharp, a stable connection to the floor. But you can see all of that on the manufacturer's website. For now, I think it's time to talk about how they actually influence the sound. And to tell you how AUVA 50 influenced the sound, I first have to tell you how I use them and what I have used before these. And given that I have stand-mount speakers, I actually use these feet beneath my speaker stand. And I have to say that my speakers are around 17 kilograms, and my speaker stands are metal filled with sand, and they're like another 17 kilograms. So together we are talking about speaker and a stand of 34 kilograms. And some people would say, wow, that's quite heavy and it's vibration prone, etc. But just because something has a lot of mass doesn't mean it's prone to vibrations. For example, concrete and concrete walls vibrate quite nicely, and you can hear anyone in your building drilling the wall, even though they're massive and very heavy. But also because I know the importance of vibrations and I experimented with that before, I started a long time ago with these iron spikes. And these are a little bit duller on the top, not so sharp, because iron is a softer material and it would dull out very quickly if it's really sharp. Then I just tried stainless steel spikes that are much pointier, because stainless steel can handle that and not get smeared. And I noticed, wow, that sounded better, more tidy, it had better, clearer and cleaner highs. But then at some point, a small manufacturer here in Serbia produced these anti-vibration feet that utilize some sort of ball bearing inside, and you can use this beneath your electronics. There is a small thread in the middle, you can put an adapter and thread it not here, or you can just put your spikes inside of these and use them as spike footers, which is a combination that I really liked how it sounds. Stainless steel spikes plus these anti-vibration feet. They were affordable, quite affordable, like 5 years ago, 100 euros for 8 of them. They're not made anymore, but with inflation and everything, I would fully expect they cost like 200 euros nowadays. So I was coming from that, and I inserted Stack Audio AUVA 50 beneath my speaker stands. And on the first listen, I was a little bit so-so, because I heard that sound is cleaner and clearer, but it was a little bit lean and lacked core and substance. But that same day, later in the evening, some 6 to 8 hours later, that impression noticeably improved. That the bass line came back and everything sounded healthier and fuller again, like I'm used to for my system. Later on, I found out that these do have some settle time, and they say that in the first 10 hours, it's the biggest difference that you'll notice. But I noticed that even several days after, like very, very small improvements could be observed of them settling. But the crucial moment is those first like 8-10 hours. Just don't make any judgments during that period. And what I've realized after that initial period is that everything just sounded as if I moved from one good component in my system to another one from the same brand, but of a higher tier. And it starts from the baseline. It got tidier and cleaner, but at the same time actually more energetic and more punchy. It was like something that was before a little bit bloated. And guys, the bass line in my system was not actually bloated even before this fit. Many visitors were like impressed how tidy and clean it is. But after putting these beneath my speaker stands, it felt like everything just concentrated to the even more precise hit that now has more energy, that was previously slightly dispersed across time domain. And that made the whole bass line less precise, and I didn't even know it before I heard what's possible with these. And because of this, even some songs and some bass lines that were slightly resonating, and I always thought, well, that has to be connected to my room mods. Now in most of these songs, that is much tidier and much more controlled, and I was like, wow, after all, that was not a room mode, and it could be improved with just better vibration control under my speakers. it's crazy. But that thing about notes being more precise and more energetic at the same time, it also goes for the mid-range and for high frequencies. There's a sensation that something that was a little bit softer and not as well defined just pulled itself together and up to be more defined and have even more energy and overall clarity. And all of that clarity resulted in a sensation of a bigger and wider soundstage. It feels slightly deeper with clearer echoes and some tone trails, and it definitely felt wider too. And the thing is that is not some sort of coloring or emphasizing some part of the spectrum, like, oh yeah, now we have more of the upper mid-range, so sound appears to be cleaner. No, when there's a very punchy bass line, it feels, as I said, even more energetic and even more punchy. But then, if we are talking about really fine mid-range tone or inner tone texture, something that sounds crunchy, like lots of tones in this song, that also sounds more present and just more textured and more believable in the mid-range. And it jumps forward, it separates itself from the mix better. But then when I play something that has very reverberant, very laid back, like deep whole kind of tonality, like this song for example, I feel that that space behind the speakers is even deeper and even more reverberant. And that made me realize it's not just manipulating tonality, it's not emphasizing some parts of the spectrum, making some songs appear more cleaner and clearer, but at the expense of something else. Because everything feels improved and expanded, and things that should be more forward, they feel like they separate themselves better from the rest of the music. But things that should be in the back, laid back and deep behind your speakers, they feel even deeper behind your speakers. And yeah, I mentioned that the bass line is tidier and cleaner, but I didn't mention this particular thing that I really like. When there's a song with deep and continuous bass line, not something that punches or hits at moments, but goes continuously, then there is a tendency for that bass line to actually slightly muddy the mid-range or just make the whole soundstage collapse a little bit towards the center of the soundstage. But with Stack Audio AUVA, I noticed in like songs like this one that that bass line can keep going and digging and pressurizing your room, while the rest of the instruments and air and just wide soundstage stays like completely separated and uncluttered from that bass line. That's also something that you, for example, experience when you go from a not so powerful amplifier to one that is much more powerful, has better control of your bass driver and much better grip over bass line. And you experience something similar, but here I got it from a basically passive component that is this anti-vibration fit. So the overall improvement that I'm hearing is really not much different from going, as I said, from one decent component to the component of the same manufacturer that doesn't change drastically tonality of your system or anything else, but just everything sounds like you have a component of one whole tier above. For example, an easy analogy to make, because I had the chance to hear them both, when I used to own Hagel H90 amp, I was quite satisfied with it. But then my friend brought his H190. While they sound similar, H190 develops bigger soundstage, deeper soundstage. It has more grunt in the bass line, but more clarity and control too at the same time. And it's basically the same with these anti-vibration fit. It's just a little bit difficult to realize that from the perspective where when you exchange one amp that is noticeably slimmer and more lightweight for another one that is like whole $2,000 more expensive, bigger, with much bigger transformers. It says right there in the tech specs that is quite more powerful, and all of that you hear, you easily justify in your brain. Like, yeah, it's twice the price, amp, much higher power, it's bigger, everything is better. Of course, I expected to get that kind of improvement. But when you just put some feet underneath your already massive, weighty and stable speaker stands, and you hear the same thing, and then you talk about it on YouTube, some people will say that you're a shill or a dumbass or biased or it's a placebo, because they do not understand the physics behind it. But that's really not our problem, is it? And finally, one funny story to share. My friend, an audiophile from London, he also thought about trying stack audio feet. And we talked about, I got these AUVA 50 first, and I was impressed. I chatted about it with him, and then he jumped the gun and decided to try Model 70, the middle one. And he's so impressed with the overall improvement. This is his system, by the way, great PMC speakers and some electronics from a small Serbian manufacturer. And he says, like, he basically confirmed everything I said. He's astonished by the improvement. And he says, I have to bring Model 70 for you to try. And I was like, please don't do that, because I definitely believe that Model 70 sounds better than Model 50. But it's just a little bit too rich for my blood. And I don't want to hear something that I will be, wow, that's fantastic, and then go to my bed crying because I don't have them. Please wait a bit until I catch up with Darko and Cheap Audio Man and my finances are a little bit better, so then I can hear AUVA 70. Until then, I'm perfectly happy with AUVA 50, and I'm not letting these go out of my system. Once you hear that kind of improvement, and once you realize it's like I said, tier higher component, this price that initially seemed very high to me suddenly makes more sense, because this kind of product is never about bill of materials. Are these worth it? Well, for me personally, in my own system and improvement that I'm hearing, yes, they are worth it. And I do believe that anyone who is deep into this hobby and already has really great system will feel that way, because the better your whole setup is, the more of its clarity and its excellent imaging and precision will these bring out. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.